and you used Linux operating system before, you can skip this section and move to the next section. But if Linux is new to you, so I suggest that you spend some time getting familiar with the operating system, because as a penetration tester and ethical hackers, one of your main tools will be Kali Linux. So unless you are familiar with this operating system, you will not be able to use Kali Linux in an effective way. Now, before we start, I want to tell you that the best way to learn Kali Linux is to open the virtual machine and start navigating inside the operating system and check different features and different options. I believe most of you learned Microsoft Windows the same way. The majority didn't take any Microsoft Windows training, but they open the operating system and start surfing around to check the different options and different features. So besides those lectures, to be able to use Linux in an effective way, just open the virtual machine and start using it and check different options in Linux operating system. Now, to start, Linux is not that much different than Windows. It used to be, because before Linux was a command line operating system where we are writing everything in command, but right now Linux is graphical interface like Windows, as you're going to see in a few seconds, has most of the Windows feature, but the main difference in Linux or between Linux and Windows is the filing system, and this is what we're going to discuss right now. So before starting our virtual machine, let's have an idea about what is the main difference between Linux and Windows. It's mainly the filing system. Now in Windows, how do you organize your files in Windows? You usually have a hard drive that is divided to different partitions. You have the C drive, you have the D drive, and maybe E and F or whatever drive. Then you, inside those drives, you start creating folders where you are keeping all your file inside those folders. In Linux is similar, except Linux has its own specific folder. You do not create the folder the same way you do in Windows. So in Linux, for instance, we have a big folder called the root. We also refer to this folder by this sign, the slash. This is the main folder, which is the root. Under this folder, we have other subfolder, and each folder holds file related to something. So for instance, we have a folder called etc under root subfolder. This folder includes all the configuration file. I'm going to show you that in a few seconds in Kali Linux virtual machine. I'm just explaining to you the main difference between Windows and Linux. So if you are looking for any file related to configuration, it could be the network configuration, it could be the files that hold all the username and password, the file that has all the DNS configuration, everything will be inside the etc. While we have another folder called var, which include all the logs. So if you need to check the logs related to the installation or any program configuration or user who logged in, you need to check the logs. It will be inside the var folder. We have another folder which is called binary. This includes all the command. So when you are typing a command in Linux, how Linux can execute it, how Linux, which is an operating system that only understands 0 and 1, how can they understand when you type for them list files or copy file or move file? They have a file that include all those commands translated with their language, and they are kept in the bin folder. So whenever you are typing something to Linux, he will go to the binary folder and check the files that match the commands that you wrote and will execute it accordingly. So if someone accidentally delete a file from here and then you type the command, it will not be executed. And so on. We have a root, we have a boot folder, we have a home where all your folder will be saved. Now, the scope of this course is not to teach you the Linux architecture. So you don't need to memorize all those folders and their functionality and so on. You just need to understand the structure of Linux, but in a very high level. Before moving to the virtual machine and verifying those settings, I want to tell you that yes, Linux maybe it's a GUI interface, graphical user interface, but still we're going to need to use the command line. And I don't want you to have a problem with using the command line because it's quite easy. And you will not need to memorize that much of command, because there is a lot of helping tool in Linux that will help you if in case you forgot any syntax or any switch, you can recover that easily. So we're going to use some command line, and it's just a matter of time. You'll get familiar with the tools and you'll get familiar with using the command line. But the point here that do not just depend on listening on a couple of lectures about Linux operating system. You have to go that yourself, and as they are saying, get your hand dirty using Kali Linux. Now let's move to our Kali Linux virtual machine, and let's see the structure that we spoke about, and let's get familiar with it. So this is my Kali Linux virtual machine that we explained how to download and install it earlier. And I'm gonna log in as a root with the default password tour. Now, one of the things that you should consider before starting using Kali Linux in a real environment is to change this default password. But for the course purpose, I'm keeping the default password, but realistically, when you start using it, you have to use the default password. So as you can see, it's a graphical interface with a menu that look like Windows Start menu. It includes all the tools. Let me just increase the screen for you. So as you can see, under the application, you will find all the penetration testing phases and the tools that you can use for this phase. So if we are looking for web application analysis, for instance, you're going to find most of the web application hacking tools and vulnerability assessment tools. While password attacks, those are some of the brute forcing and dictionary attacks. Wireless attacks, so it's not hard to find the specific tools. You just need to go to the right category and you're going to find the categories that you are looking for. In places, you're going to find things related to location. As you can see, if you need to go to your home folder, if you need to go to document, download, they try to make it very similar to Microsoft Windows, where you have a profile. And under this profile, you have different folders. You have the desktop, document, download, music, picture, and so on. So when you are saving a picture, it will automatically be saved in this folder. So it's kind of similar to the structure of Windows. Now, let's go to the computer, where we can check the structures that I was explaining earlier. Just let me. Okay. So this is the computer folder, and all you need to do is to go here and type the location, which is the root. You are asking him to go to the root folder, and if you do that, you will find the structure that I just explained. Under the root, there is the subfolders that I was telling you about, the etc with all the configuration file, the home folder where each user that you create on this machine will have his own folder here that includes the documents, the downloads, the picture, and so on, the mounted, the media, the and so on. Now, which folder, once you log in, which folder you're going to have access to, it depends on your permission. If you have a root permission, you can access any of those folders. But if you have a user and you only have a folder, a permission to your home folder, so you cannot go to the etc or so the permission here has a role that will redirect you to the right folder. So it's all a matter of permission. And to simplify the concept, let's go back to the presentation. So usually permission can go from up to down. So if you have root permissions, that means you have a permission on the home folder here. Then you can access any of the below folder. While if you have a permission to the home directory, which is regular user permission, you cannot access the root, or you cannot access the folder on the same level. So it depends on what permission do you have. And starting from next lecture, I'm going to start showing you some small comment that will show you what kind of permission do you have, where you are located, how can you change between different folder and so on. Some of the command tool will be found on this taskbar on the left hand side, and it can be customized. And if you are looking for something, you just can click on this one, the last one here, and you can it will show all the programs, including the setting program, because also you will find a media player, you will find programs that allow you to change in the setting of the Kali Linux, changing the background, changing. So if you just type setting here, you're gonna find a setting program where you can go and change the settings the same way you are doing in control panel in Microsoft Windows. If you need a media player, if you need, so it's very similar. I believe if you spend like 1 or 2 hours working and opening different feature, you'll get to understand how Linux is working, and it's not that different than Windows. You just need to be familiar with the file structure of Linux and how the file structure in Linux is different than Windows. Finally, before moving to the next lecture, as you're gonna see that we will use a lot of command line. And again, you don't have to worry about memorizing commands or syntax. It's quite easy, and I'm going to show you a different way for doing it. You just need to right click here and open a terminal, or from the taskbar on the left side, you can click here and type terminal, and this is from where we're going to type the commands. Now you can change the size, because as you can see, the terminal, you can zoom in, so the size of the terminal will be accepted. And this is how you open a terminal, and whenever you need to start writing commands to execute some tools. So let's move to the next lecture and get a little bit deeper about Linux in general and Kali Linux especially.